Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with etrailer, and today we're going to be taking a closer look at the Dexter hybrid oil for vault bearing protectors. So if you've ever had to drop your trailer down, get the boat off of it so that you can actually lift it up and repack your bearings, maybe swap out your grease seals, and maybe potentially also replace those bearings as well, just because you're just doing that routine maintenance and you are getting tired of it, you want to be able to kind of cut down the time that you're spending on maintenance and spend more of that time out on the lake, then switching over to the vault system is going to give you that exactly. This system is going to be a 5-year minimum on the maintenance, so you'll go a whole 5 years without actually having to do any kind of repacking or getting anything dirty at all. The one thing you will need to do throughout that 5 years is actually come back and just look at your vault. And what you're looking for is this black center cap is actually going to be pressed out. And if you were already running the trailer, just the heat that's going to generate, that'll push that out even more. But what we're looking for is if any time this fully sinks back in and it's flush with that inner rim right there, that's how we know we have a leak and we need to actually open up our system and repack those bearings, get everything nice and cleaned up. Probably also replace that grease seal as well so that we can get to that inner bearing, and then just refill your system and you'd be all good to go. Now if we take a closer look at the hybrid grease here, you can see it has more of a grease consistency right now. Now I will say it is a lot thinner than most marine or high temp greases out there, but that is kind of what we're going for here, because once this system is fully on and it is fully enclosed, whenever the rotor starts to heat up here, it's now going to turn that grease into more of an oil consistency, and then that's going to help it slosh around, and you get the benefit of an oil bath system without actually having to go through all of the extra labor and adding on that plastic cap on the end, which could most likely get damaged since you're backing your boat trailer into the water. With a nice steel construction, you don't really have to worry about this getting damaged like you would with those plastic clear caps that you pop on for an oil bath setup. So it does give you a little bit more added security there. In our case, we are just refilling and repacking our bearings with our grease, but if this is a brand new install for you and you're switching over to the vault system, you are going to want to make sure that you just get rid of your bearings and your grease seal, because you don't want to take a chance at the old grease getting mixed in with our new grease here. So as with any grease job, you want to make sure that you're using two greases that are going to be compatible with each other. So if you're not reusing that same brand that you already put in there previously, or maybe you just don't know what you had in there previously, that's a good time to either fully clean out those bearings, make sure that you're soaking them overnight and really getting all of the grease out of it, or just completely swapping away from it, getting brand new inner and outer bearings, brand new grease seal, and then also swapping over to a new grease gun. Now typically you can get away with just swapping out the tip on there, but in this case you're really only going to be using this once in a while, just because this has such a long life expectancy compared to our other standard greases. This would be a point where I'd probably just end up getting its own grease gun, because it's not like grease guns are super expensive. It's a low cost item, and then labeling it, having that separate as my boat trailer only grease gun, and having that filled with the Dexter Vault. This is a much thinner consistency than the other greases, so it's going to be really hard for you to get all of the previous grease out of this tip here and swapped over to the new grease without it getting contaminated. So it's really important that you make sure that you're swapping all over to new stuff or really cleaning that out. And just to give you a little bit of a idea on the consistency here, so if we look here, you can see it's kind of watery. It's easy to manipulate here, and it'll kind of drip out if I really let it. Whereas with our other greases, we've got marine and high temp here. It's more of a peanut butter consistency, where it's just kind of real thick, almost like a hair gel here. And this, isn't going to drip off your finger. That's just going to sit there. Whereas if I put some of this on, right now it's a little bit cooler, but as it starts to warm up, that'll start just kind of dripping off of you. One of the first things I like to do when I'm starting this off is just break each one of the lug nuts loose while it's still on the ground, so that way when we come back after lifting up by the frame, which I've got a jack stand right over here holding it up at the frame at the back, that way I'm not trying to fight the wheel once this is up in the air trying to get those lug nuts loose. So I've got that all loose at this point. Now I just need to kind of pop them out, and then we can take the wheel off. Now there is some prep work you should definitely do before swapping out the grease. just because with this being a hybrid of grease and oil, it is pretty liquidy. So I would definitely grab like an oil catch, or what I'm going to be doing is just throwing down a big chunk of cardboard, and then I'm going to put some shop towels over it, just because this kind of gets everywhere. Pull that off. Got a little pop-in cap here. And now you can see our old vault. Now before we take this off, I do want to mention the black little spring here. So this actually can shift in and out on the vault. And I've got another one right here that can kind of show that just a little bit better. So you see how it has some movement to it. So as heat starts to build up in here when we're using our trailer and actually activating the brakes, you'll see that kind of pop out just a little bit more. Now the thing here is when we're not using it, say this is nice and cold, it's been sitting overnight, if you saw that black plug all the way inside of our vault here, that would tell us that, hey, we may need to actually pop that off and fill it up with some more of the hybrid grease and oil. That way we know that this is going to have enough lubrication inside of it to keep those bearings good. Now what you can see right now is it's sticking out about 1/8 of an inch. That's exactly how we want it to look when it's not actually in use and when we have it full of grease. So at this point now we're going to take our rubber mallet, and this is where I'm going to throw out that cardboard and a couple shop towels. So we're going to be taking apart some components. I would definitely get yourself a box of gloves. You're going to be swapping them out pretty often just because of how dirty this can get. And then a couple of towels for once we get our components out so that we can clean those up. Now I'm going to take a rubber mallet, and what we'll do is just kind of spin it around, and we're going to try and hit this at almost like a 45-degree angle towards ourselves, and that's going to help kind of pop it out of our hub. And when you start getting to the end here, just like that, you can see just how much grease is in there and how liquidy that is, where it's just going to pour right on out. So we'll come back with our towel. We're going to clean this up. Now with this axle, we're going to have a cotter pin that's sticking through the spindle, and then a little nut retainer, and that's this guy right here on the outside. Once we get that off, then we can take off the spindle nut and the D-shaped flat washer. Well, looks like we are going to be replacing the cotter pin as well. Cotter pin will not come with this kit. I typically have a bunch of these on hand, so I always just replace them when I can. Just makes it a whole lot easier instead of trying to jam a bent up pin back in. So I would definitely pick some up extra before you start this install, just to make your life a lot easier. This cap, or retention cap here for our nut, can just be cleaned off, and we'll set that aside. We're going to reuse that. Clean this up. This nut should only be hand tight. Looks like it's a little bit more than that, so I've got a pair of channel locks I'm going to pop that off with. Looks like we got some debris stuck in the threads here, so I'm going to spray this with some brake clean once I get all these components out, just to kind of clean them up and make sure everything's good. You can also take a little wire brush through the threads and kind of clean that up as well. On this one, we're going to take our caliper off. We're going to pop out that outer bearing and that flat washer, and I'm going to clean those up. I'm going to, like I said, spray those down with some brake clean. It's kind of hard to tell. Like normally when you're doing a grease job and you're repacking your bearings, your grease looks all brown or black, kind of like this is, just right out of the tube. Now the only real difference I'm seeing between our dirty grease and the new grease, just because it is a dark color, is really just it looks a lot shinier. The opened end here, where it's a little bit wider spacing, is a lot easier to spray through, so that you can get everything to kind of come out the front here. So that's what we're going to do with some brake clean, just to kind of clean this up a bit more. set that aside, let that dry off, and we'll keep trucking along. I clean off our spindle. Now our spindle is a easy lube, but at the same time they took off the little grease zerk fitting. I'm going to put a new one on because there is one included in the kit, and they only give you one, so I think it's more so just to like stick on, use to kind of clean out, and then also add in a little bit more before you stick the cap back on and you have the hub in place. Because right at the back here, right where our grease seal sits, is where the actual fitting comes through. So we would be pumping a bunch of lube in through our spindle. It'll pop out here, and then it kind of pushes that all forward, so that way you can really fill up the entire cavity. I'm going to use the grease zerk fitting so I can first clean out the grease that is in there. So with a 5/16 wrench, we can tighten this down. We don't need to go crazy tight because we are going to take this back off. And we also don't want to potentially bust this off inside of here, because you can break grease zerk fittings off inside of the spindle, and then you're going to have to sit there, drill it out, and then re-tap it so you can get a new one in there later on. And that's just a big hassle you don't want to deal with. So just real careful as you're tightening it up. Now I grab my grease gun and a paper towel. It's going to come squirting out all over. Before you throw your lubricant provided in this kit into your grease gun, I would definitely swap it out for a brand new one, because you don't want to mix and match your oil and greases. With this one being a hybrid of both, I wouldn't think it'd be compatible with any other kind of grease out there. So I would definitely pick up an extra grease gun. I just pulled this specifically for this job just to make sure that we weren't mixing up the greases and potentially contaminating them and then having them break down. So like I said, now we will squirt some out. You can see it coming out of that fitting. Just do 3 or 4 squirts. That's probably enough to get through there. We're gonna start working on our hub. We're gonna pop out our grease seal. What I typically do is just take a flathead screwdriver, usually one of the fatter ones if you have it, and then a hammer, and we're just gonna kind of beat down on our grease seal, and usually if you hit it from one side, it'll kind of pop up the other side and you can get it out pretty easily. Running it around and cleaning out the grease, trying to get all of that old gasket maker out too. I don't want that to be a potential reason why it leaks later on. The face of our hub, if you look down inside of there, there's a little gasket or O-ring right here, and they give you replacements for it, and that's what we're going to swap out right now. So we'll pull this out of the hub. I know this was a question that we had on the expert team. I saw they were asking for some videos showing exactly how to replace it and where it goes, and now we have an opportunity to actually show that off. So here is where that goes. Clean that up real good. I actually spray that with some brake clean too. Then we can slip in our new one. It's going to fight a little bit there. There we go. So at this point now we're going to start packing our bearings. I am going to just get a good glob of it in my hand. Now, if you've ever seen someone pack bearings by hand before, typically that grease is a lot thicker, so it takes a little bit more time for it to really come through the bearing. On this one, with it being so thin, because it's an oil and grease mixture, kind of just blows right through it real fast. So the goal here is on the bottom side where it's more open, we're going to sit there and kind of just scrape, and then you'll see it pop up on the top here. So I'll give you a little bit of an example there. As I sit there and scrape it, you see it start to kind of come up between the bearings, and it's popping out the top now. Now normally when you're doing this, you got like a red or a green or a blue grease, and it's real easy to tell when you're getting the dirty grease out and the new grease in. This one, since it's already the same color, makes it a little bit more challenging to make sure that you really cleaned it out. So in this case, I'd either replace the bearings each time I was doing this, or I'd really probably soak it overnight in some brake clean. We're gonna just keep doing that until it's all throughout here. I'm probably gonna have to squirt a little bit more in my hand to fully get this one. And then once we get it all throughout, then I'm gonna come back and just kind of smear it all over the outside too, because we're gonna keep all those little rollers nice and lubricated too. Once you have it all lubricated up, I like to stick my 2 fingers from the middle so I can drop it down nice and evenly into our race. And then next we are going to get our grease seal and put that on. I'm gonna take my gloves off, get all that gross grease out of the way. And we're gonna wanna pick up some gasket maker too, because we're gonna put that on the outside of our grease seal. So we're gonna put a real thin line around here, and then just kind of smear it around. And once again, I'm going to set that down in there. And now we are going to grab our hammer, and in my case, I'm going to drive this in using a bottom of a hole saw. So what we want is something that's nice and sturdy. This hole saw is really thick metal at the base, and it's wider than the bore hole here for our hub. So that's going to make sure that as I drive this in, I can't push it past the lip of our hub here. We don't want that to start sinking in too far. You want that just nice and flush with the bore hole here. So I'm going to set that on there, and we'll drive this in real quick. And then I'm going to wipe off that gasket maker, come out with it. This is where you want to kind of feel it, make sure it didn't sink in too far, but also that it's flush. Feels good to me. So that's all good now, and at this point, if you wanted to, you grab like a little bit of grease and just kind of smear it just on the inside. Not much, just enough to kind of help lubricate it so it slips onto the spindle a little bit easier. And we'll also put a little bit on our spindle when we're ready to put it up in place. All right, I'm gonna put a little bit of lube on our spindle and kind of smear that around. Don't have to go super crazy with it because we are gonna fill this up with that grease zerk fitting right after. Now we can throw our hub on in there nice and straight. Fight the caliper here though. Make sure we're fully in place. And I'm gonna throw one of the caliper bolts back in to help hold that up while we get this fully in. All right, now I'm gonna pack my outer bearing. We'll get that in. Then we're gonna throw on our flat washer, our axle nut, and then our retainer clip. So this is, once again, we're gonna squeeze a bunch of this into our hand. You can see it kind of starting to come out, all those little sections there between the rollers. Smear it all around. We're gonna pop that in place. I'm gonna clean my gloves off before I touch the rotor here though. All right, I'm gonna get my D-shaped flat washer in there. That's gonna help keep even pressure on our axle, on our bearing. And then the axle nut we can throw on. All right, now we're gonna torque this so that way we can fully seat our bearings, and we should have no play with our rotor. So what you can do at the end of this is just kind of pull side to side and see if it has any wiggle room. If it has wiggle room, we didn't fully seat that bearing. So here's where I would grab it. I'm not really getting any play out of it, so that's good. At this point now, I'll back it off, and then we're just gonna go finger tight with it. So I got it loose now. Now I'll finger tighten it, and you really don't wanna go past that. We don't wanna go too hard to where now it's gonna pinch those bearings, and then it's gonna cause more issues when they start to heat up. After that, now we can throw on our retainer clip, making sure that we have it at an opening for our cotter pin to poke through. And we can just bend up our pieces on it. And that'll prevent that from being able to come out. Now we're going to reuse that grease zerk fitting right here, and we're going to pump until we start to see grease coming out all along behind our flat washer here. So essentially what we're doing is filling up this whole cavity, so that way water is not going to get in here and end up giving us issues. All right, starting to come through. Give it a few more. I want to get it till it's just at the edge of that washer. You can see coming up through the different rollers through our bearing. Now for our Volt, we're going to be putting in enough grease to fill it all the way up to that snap ring. May want to just kind of tap it on the ground too to let it all settle. Fill a little bit in, I'll tap it on the ground to get rid of any air pockets we might have, and then keep filling it. And then, like you said, we're just trying to get up that lip there with the snap ring. Give it a couple more squirts here. And now at this point, now we can drive it into our hub. Well, that's going to do it for our look at the Dexter hybrid oil for Vault bearing protectors. My name's Kevin, and if you still have some questions about the Vault system or its hybrid oil / grease that you would need to use with it, then please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.